The night is not an end. It is a departure. Sleep doesn't shut you off. It shifts you over. You were never unconscious. That's just what you were told. Every night, as your eyelids grow heavy and the world dissolves into quiet, your body powers down. But your awareness doesn't vanish. It transitions. Your consciousness steps through an invisible threshold into realms far older than language, far deeper than logic. And this journey has been happening since your first breath, whether you remember it or not. The reason you don't recall it isn't because nothing happened. It's because from childhood, you were gently trained to forget. It was just a dream, they'd say, whenever you described flying over oceans or speaking to beings made of light. Don't be silly, they'd chide. When you swore you'd met your great-grandfather in a garden of silver trees. Over time, you learned to silence your inner witness. You traded wonder for compliance, mystery for measurability. But ancient cultures knew better. Long before algorithms and alarm clocks, the sages of the Obsidian Coast taught that sleep was sacred navigation, a nightly pilgrimage where the soul reconnected with its source. They didn't call it rest, they called it soul drifting, and they honored it with rituals, breathing in cedar smoke, whispering questions to the stars, anointing temples with oils distilled from moonbloom flowers. To them, dreams weren't noise. They were transmissions, messages from ancestors, warnings from the future, lessons from dimensions layered just beyond the veil of waking sight. You were born open to this. As a child, your dreams weren't stories. They were experiences. You felt the wind of other worlds on your skin. You tasted emotions that had no name in your waking tongue. But the world had no place for such knowing, so you buried it. Yet deep down, you've always sensed it. The night is not empty, it is alive. And every time you close your eyes, you don't disappear, you depart. The keeper of the threshold in the mist-laced archipelago known as the Azure Isles, where tides whispered secrets to the cliffs and bioluminescent moss glowed beneath moonlit ferns. There lived a woman named Alaris, not a priestess, not a mystic, but a navigator of the veil. She taught that sleep was never passive rest, but soul drifting, a nightly voyage through layered realities shaped by one's inner frequency. Her students didn't meditate in silence. They practiced dream recall by firelight, etching symbols onto kelp parchment. Most tumble into sleep like stones, Alaris would say, her voice low as ocean breath. But you can learn to sail. One evening, a young apprentice named Kale, haunted by fragmented dreams of falling through endless libraries, asked, "What if I don't remember where I went?" Alaris stirred a bowl of crushed moon petal and sea salt. The soul remembers even when the mind forgets. Your task isn't perfect recall. It's returning changed. She revealed the liminal gate, that fragile threshold between waking and sleep. Your last thought before sleep isn't idle, she warned. It's a seed. Plant fear, and you'll walk shadowed corridors. Plant curiosity, and crystalline cities may rise to meet you. Kale frowned. But how do I choose what to plant? Breathe, she said, placing a hand on his chest. Feel your heartbeat slow, then ask, not with your lips, but your bones. Show me what I need to see. That night, Kyle didn't scroll. He sat by the window, watching stars blink awake, and whispered his question into the dark. For the first time in years, he didn't dread sleep. He awaited it. The dream is not yours alone. Kale's first true lucid dream came 3 nights after Alaris's lesson. He found himself standing on a shore where the sand shimmered like crushed sapphires, and the ocean didn't crash, it sang in low, harmonic tones. Above, twin moons cast overlapping silver halos on the water. He knew, without doubt, this was not his mind's invention. Then he saw her, a woman in a woven cloak of starlight, kneeling at the tide's edge, sketching symbols in the wet sand. She looked up, her eyes held galaxies. "You're late," she said, not unkindly. "Late for what?" Kale asked, voice echoing strangely. "The convergence," she replied, rising. "I've been waiting since last moon cycle. My name is Leora. I'm a weaver from the Eastern Peaks." Kale blinked. "I've never been to the Eastern Peaks." "No," she smiled. "But your frequency matched mine. That's how we met here, in the Astral Commons, where souls align by resonance, not geography." She explained that for weeks she'd been dreaming of a boy with storm-gray eyes, asking, "Where did I go?" The very question Alaris had taught him to pose. "Last night," Leora said, "I answered your call without knowing your name. The dream realm doesn't need names. It needs intent." Kale's chest tightened. "So, you're real. As real as you are," she said. pressing a warm stone into his palm. It pulsed faintly. "Take this. It's a dream anchor. When you hold it in waking life, it'll help you remember." Then the tide surged, and the world dissolved. He woke gasping, the stone clutched in his hand, cool, smooth, and humming with residual energy. At dawn, he showed it to Alaris. She traced its surface, eyes wide. "This is luminite," she whispered. "It only forms where moonlight kisses salt water at the exact moment of a solstice. No one's found one in decades." Kale stared at the stone. "She's real, and she's waiting." Alaris nodded. "You weren't just dreaming, you were met. The frequency of your inner world, not all journeys are luminous." 2 weeks after meeting Leora in the Sapphire Shore, Kale fell asleep weighed down by grief. His sister, Mira, lay feverish in the healer's hut. Her breath shallow, her skin burning. He'd spent the day bargaining with spirits, grinding herbs, even begging the tides for mercy. Exhausted and afraid, he collapsed onto his mat without ritual, without intention, only dread. That night, he didn't drift. He plummeted. He found himself in a labyrinth of rusted iron corridors, the air thick with static. Jagged pipes hissed overhead. Shadows slithered just beyond the flickering gaslight. A low hum vibrated in his molars. He tried to call out, but his voice dissolved like smoke. When he woke, he was drenched in sweat, his heart hammering against his ribs. "Where was that?" he rasped to Alaris at dawn. "The echo wastes," she said gently, stirring a cup of ashroot tea. "A lower astral layer shaped by unresolved pain. You didn't go there by accident. Your sorrow tuned your frequency to its resonance." "But it felt like a prison," Kyle whispered. "It is and isn't," Alaris replied. "It's a mirror. The wastes show you what you carry but refuse to face. That labyrinth. It's the maze of your helplessness. Those shadows, your fear of loss." She placed a hand on his shoulder. "The astral doesn't punish, it reflects. And reflection is the first step toward healing." Then she taught him the rite of turning, when chased by a nightmare. "Don't flee. Stop. Turn. Ask, 'What do you need me to see?' Fear shrinks when met with curiosity," she said. "And sometimes the monster becomes the messenger." Kale nodded slowly. That night, he washed his face in salt water, lit a candle of pressed moonbloom, and whispered, "Show me what I must face to help her." He didn't ask for a miracle. He asked for truth, and the dream shifted. Time is a spiral, not a line. Kale's dream, after setting his intention, was unlike any before. He stood on a bridge of woven light suspended over an endless ocean, its surface reflecting not sky, but stars from other eras. On the far side stood his sister, Mira, healthy, radiant, barefoot, in a gown of white petals. She held a flower with 7 spiraling petals, glowing faintly. "Take this," she said, her voice like wind through reeds. "It blooms only in the field of what could be." He reached, but woke before his fingers touched it. At dawn, shaken, he described the vision to Alaris. She grew still. "That flower, it's Luminara. It doesn't grow in our time, only in potential futures where healing has already occurred." "But Mira's still feverish," Kale said, voice cracking. "Time isn't linear in the dream realms," Alaris replied gently. "Past, present, future, they're all happening now, like notes in a chord. Sleep lets you hear the harmony." 2 days later, a healer from the southern coast arrived with a rare remedy, and a small white bloom with 7 petals. "It's called Luminara," she said. "Grows only where moonlight touches salt water at dawn." Kale froze. "My sister, she's been dreaming of this flower too." Alaris nodded. "You didn't just see the future. You touched a version of it. And by doing so, you helped pull it closer." She explained that precognition isn't prophecy. It's resonance with possibility. "The future isn't fixed," she said, "but it is accessible to those who quiet their minds enough to listen." That night, Kale held the Luminara beside Mira's bed, whispered his sister's name into the petals, and fell asleep asking, "Show me how to help her cross back." In his dream, the bridge returned, but this time he walked it, and on the other side, Mira took his hand. The rite of turning, Kale didn't just walk the bridge in his dream, he crossed it, and when he reached Mira, she pressed the Luminara into his palm. "This isn't just a flower," she whispered. "It's a key. It opens the door between what is and what can be." Then the dream dissolved, but the flower remained cool, pulsing, real in his waking hand. Alaris examined it at dawn, her fingers trembling slightly. "You didn't just visit her," she said. You anchored a healing timeline. But that night, something darker stirred. Kale fell asleep with gratitude. But beneath it, a thread of fear. What if I lose her before the flower blooms? That sliver of doubt tuned his frequency downward. He found himself back in the Echo Wastes. But this time, the labyrinth had a new corridor. At its end stood a figure cloaked in static, its face shifting like smoke. It didn't speak. It echoed, repeating Kale's own whispered fears. Too late. You failed. She's slipping. Kale's instinct was to run, but then he remembered Ilaris's words. Fear shrinks when met with curiosity. He stopped, turned, took a breath. What do you need me to see? He asked aloud. The figure stilled. Then slowly it peeled back its hood, revealing not a monster but a younger version of himself, curled in a corner, weeping over his sister's feverish body. I'm scared, the boy whispered. Kale knelt. I know. But you're not alone. As he spoke, the corridor softened. Rust turned to moss. Static faded into birdsong. The boy reached out and dissolved into light. Kale woke with tears on his cheeks, but his chest felt lighter. He understood now. The nightmare wasn't an enemy. It was a part of him begging to be held. At sunrise, he placed the Luminara on Mira's bedside table, held her hand, and whispered, I'm here, we're both here. That afternoon, her fever broke. Ilaris watched from the doorway, eyes glistening. You didn't just heal her, she said softly. You healed the fear that was keeping her trapped. Kale looked at his hands, no longer trembling. So the dream world, it's not separate from this one. No, Ilaris replied. It's the loom, and we are the threads. The astral commons after Mira's fever broke, Kale didn't stop practicing. If anything, he leaned in deeper. He began keeping a dream journal bound in kelp fiber paper, sketching symbols that lingered upon waking spirals, keys, bridges of light. But one night, something unprecedented occurred. He didn't dream alone. He found himself in a vast amphitheater carved from living quartz, its walls humming with harmonic resonance. Dozens of figures sat in concentric rings, some cloaked in starlight, others wrapped in vines or woven shadow. At the center stood Leora. You're ready, she said, not surprised to see him. For what? Kale asked. The astral commons, she replied. This is where souls gather when their frequencies align, not by plan but by purpose. A man with silver-threaded hair turned to Kale. I'm from the northern tundra, he said. Last week, I dreamed of your sister's illness. I sent healing through the dream river. Another woman, her skin patterned like desert stone, nodded. I wove a thread of strength into your sister's aura. You felt it as warmth in her chest. Kale's breath caught. You all helped her. We answered your call, Leora said gently. When you asked, show me how to help her cross back, you didn't just speak to your own guides. You broadcast into the commons, and those tuned to compassion heard you. Ilaris had mentioned this once, how focused intention could ripple across the astral like a stone, in still water. But Kyle never imagined it was literal. Why don't we remember this more often, he asked. Because waking life is loud, said the desert woman. But in crisis the veil thins. Love amplifies signal. As dawn neared, the amphitheater began to dissolve. Leora pressed a second Luminara into his hand, this one blooming with 8 petals. This is for you, she said. Not for healing. For remembering. He woke with both flowers resting on his chest, cool and pulsing in unison. At sunrise, Ilaris examined them, tears in her eyes. The commons doesn't open to just anyone, she whispered. It opens to those who ask not for themselves, but for others. Kale looked at the twin blooms. So sleep. It's not just personal. No, Ilaris said. It's communion. The frequency you carry where you go at night isn't random. Ilaris told Kale one evening as they sat beneath the twin moons. It's a mirror. The astral doesn't judge, it reflects. And what it reflects is your inner frequency. Kale frowned, turning the Luminara in his palm. So if I fall asleep angry, I'll end up in a storm. Worse, she said softly. You'll end up in a storm that feels like truth, because in the lower astral layers, emotion becomes architecture. Fear builds prisons. Guilt carves mazes. Resentment stains the sky. She poured him a cup of tea brewed from nightbloom petals. But peace, gratitude, curiosity, those open crystalline halls where light sings and time dissolves. Kale remembered his nightmare in the Echo Wastes, the rust, the static, the boy weeping in the corner. So the nightmare wasn't attacking me. It was showing me. Exactly, Ilaris nodded. The shadow isn't your enemy. It's your unmet self. That night, Kyle didn't just prepare for sleep, he purified for it. He washed his face in salt water, burned cedar resin, and sat in silence until his breath matched the rhythm of the tide. Then, instead of whispering a request, he offered a vow. Tonite, I carry only love. He didn't soar. He settled. He found himself in a vast library where books floated like jellyfish, their spines glowing with living script. At the center stood Leora, holding a scroll that shimmered like liquid starlight. You're vibrating differently, she said, smiling, clearer. What is this place? Kale asked. The Archive of Becoming, she replied, where souls review their lessons between lives and between nights. This is where you integrate what you've faced. She handed him the scroll. As he touched it, memories flooded him, not just from dreams, but from lifetimes. A healer in a desert city, a sailor who navigated by dream currents, a child who spoke to trees. Each life had prepared him for this one. You're not just dreaming, Leora said. You're remembering who you've always been. When he woke, the luminara on his chest pulsed once bright, warm, certain. At dawn, Ilaris met him at the shore. You didn't just visit a realm, she said, eyes gleaming. You tuned your frequency to your soul's origin. Kale looked at the horizon. So sleep, it's not escape, it's return. Yes, she whispered. And every night, you get to choose what you carry back. The Temple of Sleep, you've been treating your bed like a pit stop, Ilaris said one evening as Kale arranged his sleeping mat. But it's a temple. Every night, you cross a threshold older than language. Kale paused. A temple? Yes, she replied, lighting a coil of dreamroot incense. The ancients didn't just fall asleep, they entered. They purified their space, calmed their minds, and set sacred intention. Not for ritual's sake, but for navigation. She explained that the final hour before sleep was the golden window, when the conscious mind thins and the subconscious becomes receptive. What you feed it then becomes your compass in the unseen. Kale thought of his old habits, scrolling through glowing screens, replaying arguments, worrying about tomorrow. No wonder his dreams had felt chaotic. That night he changed everything. He washed his face in salt water infused with moon petal. He dimmed the lanterns. He sat in silence until his breath matched the rhythm of the tide. Then, instead of begging for answers, he offered gratitude. Thank you for guiding me. Show me what serves the whole. He didn't dream of bridges or libraries. He found himself standing in a vast chamber of living stone, its walls pulsing with soft gold light. At its center floated a pool of liquid silver. Reflected in it weren't images, but knowings. He saw Mira laughing in the garden. He saw Leora weaving starlight into cloth. He saw himself years from now, teaching others how to navigate the night. A voice, not sound, but presence, spoke without words. You are not lost. You are returning. When he woke, dawn painted the sky in rose and amber. On his chest lay both luminara blooms, now fused at the stem, glowing faintly. Ilaris stood in the doorway, eyes wet. You didn't just visit a realm, she whispered. You entered the sanctum of continuity, where past, present, and future converge in service to the soul's purpose. Kale touched the fused flower. So sleep. It's not escape. It's alignment. Ilaris nodded. And tonight, you didn't just rest. You remembered your vow. The moral of the night months passed. Mira fully recovered. Kyle no longer feared the dark. He greeted it like an old friend. He began teaching others what Ilaris had shown him, that sleep is not escape, but initiation, not rest, but reconnection. One evening a child asked him, "Where do we go when we sleep?" Kale smiled. "You don't go anywhere. You remember who you've always been." He explained that every night, your consciousness sails, not randomly, but according to the frequency you carry. Anger leads to storms. Gratitude opens gardens. Fear builds mazes. Love builds bridges. But what if I have a nightmare? The child asked, eyes wide. Then you've been given a gift, Kale said gently. The nightmare isn't your enemy. It's a part of you asking to be seen. Turn toward it. Ask, what do you need me to know? And watch it transform. He taught them to prepare for sleep like entering a temple. Wash the day away. Speak kindly to yourself. Set an intention. Your last thought before sleep isn't idle. It's your compass. Years later, travelers came from distant lands, saying they dreamed of a boy with storm-gray eyes who taught them to navigate the night. They spoke of shared dreams, healing flowers, and bridges of light. Hilaris, now old and silver-haired, watched Kyle from the shore. "You didn't just reclaim your dreams," she said. "You reminded the world that the night is sacred." And so the truth spread, not as dogma, but as practice. People stopped saying, "It was just a dream." They began asking, "Where did I go?" The moral is this: sleep is not unconsciousness. It is the soul's nightly pilgrimage. You were never meant to forget it. You were meant to remember and return changed.